Every entrepreneur has a story. Welcome to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, where each episode your host, Brian Carney, will share a drink with a successful business owner and have them discuss their unique journey, gaining insight on what it takes to be an entrepreneur and the different ways to get there. Brian isn't just a beer nerd, he's also the co-founder of River's Edge Advisors, a financial planning firm headquartered in Delaware, specializing in working with business owners. It's time to pour yourself a drink and enjoy a happy half hour with an entrepreneur.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur. I am your host, Brian Carney. I'm excited to have my guest, Ed Wallace, today. He is the founder of Relational Capital Group, which he later sold to AchieveNEXT. Now he's the managing director of human capital at AchieveNEXT. He is a frequent keynote speaker, best-selling author of 4 books, and the creator of a software program that measures the strength of relationships of clients and centers of influences. And finally, in his spare time, he's a faculty member at Drexel University and Villanova University. Ed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. The check's in the mail for that great intro. I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So for our conversation, Ed is at the office, and apparently at some offices, it's frowned upon to have a beer. So Ed's going to be doing a coffee, and I'm going to be doing a beer from Thin Man Brewery. So my family, we went to the Finger Lakes for vacation, and I saw this beer called Pils Mafia. Now, I'm a giant Philadelphia Eagles fan, but this is an ode to the Bills, and I always respect the Bills Mafia, so I wanted to give this a try. So we'll be giving this a rating at the end. So Ed, welcome to the show. Cheers to you.
Cheers, Brian. Which Finger Lake were you on?
On Seneca Lake. Beautiful there.
I've been on Lake Seneca a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That is really beautiful.
I didn't realize, my wife and I aren't huge wine drinkers, but I didn't realize that was, basically the East Coast capital of wine.
Oh, yeah.
We did go sample a couple, but it's beautiful there.
And all those upstate New York wineries have those wine slushies.
That's right.
Oh, there's nothing like a wine slushie in the middle of the summer.
I believe they had a couple called a Froze, I believe it was called.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Well, thanks again for doing this.
Sure.
Let's start out. Tell us a little bit about your business and what it is.
Well, I was a VP of sales for many years at a technology company. And then one day my youngest son fell off a skateboard and he had to be medevaced to the Children's Hospital here. He's fine today. He's a college baseball player, all that, everything's fine. But in the context of that process, I had a catharsis that if an 8-year-old can fall off a skateboard and we have this kind of trauma, when the hell am I going to do what I really want to do?
Right.
What I always wanted to do was get up in front of people and help them get better at selling, help them get better at accomplishing their goals. And I had to come up with a platform because there was a ton of sales training companies and I was kind of good at relationships. So I figured, you know what? Nobody's teaching relationships. And I wrote a few books and we got some traction. And then, I wrote a 3rd book and Dow Chemical, large company,
right,
got attracted to that. And that's what really set us on the path we're on. And, I've been in, I don't know how many different countries presenting the concepts, or our facilitators have done the same. And then in 2017, I got approached by an old friend who was aggregating human capital service companies. Yep. And it's not like I'm getting any younger, Brian. So, and I had no succession plan.
Yeah.
I never had a plan for anything, by the way, which goes completely against everything you advise your clients, right?
That's right.
I didn't have one plan.
Yeah.
I didn't look at one spreadsheet. So don't do that.
Right.
I just went by instincts and relationships. And so I wound up selling the company. We had a lot of accounts and, a lot of revenue to AchieveNEXT. And, for the next 7-8 years, as I earn my way out, I'm running the practice here that we call AchieveNEXT Human Capital. So there's my story.
That's phenomenal. So let's back up. So you spend basically 20 years in corporate America. And how long into your time in corporate America did you realize, you know what, this isn't really for me? And then you sort of had, I guess, the life-changing moment of your son falling off the skateboard. So how did that all sort of play out from a time perspective?
There, but for a skateboard, I'd still be there.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know what? I call it my JOB.
Yeah.
It's a 3-letter word.
Right.
Um, and I worked at a company with a great culture. So I
Right.
was lucky, and I could have stayed there for another 15 or 20 years and then, and called it a great, a great career. I always kind of took the road less traveled in everything I did.
Yeah.
When I first got, when I was in 7th grade, I quit the CYO team and went and played for the public league team. And we wound up crushing the CYO team and winning the championship, right?
Now, what sport was that? Was that basketball, baseball?
That was basketball.
Okay.
And then when I got out of college, what do? I quit a big 8 accounting firm job, and I go bartend and get a master's degree. And all my friends are coming into the bar in 3-piece suits, and I'm back there in shorts and a crappy t-shirt. But I had a sense that I don't want to be on the same road that everybody was on. And there's nothing wrong with being on the same road that other people are on. And then as I got into my sales career, I start watching these folks who did sales training, who got up in front of audiences. And I said, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And so it's not like I didn't like my job, but I always had this fuzzy vision that I could do that. And, it's kind of worked out pretty well. I'm actually out giving speeches again. A lot of associations and companies we work with are bringing people together at venues. So I was in Orlando 3 times in the last 2 months, and I was in Hampshire, and I'm going to Texas in 2 weeks. So it's getting better.
That's for sure.
Yep.
But going along the lines of the sort of the road less traveled, I've read 2 of your books, and you do an excellent job. And I think it's very different in the world of business books, where you sort of have a novel weaved into a story about business. And I think that's a really unique thing to be able to do. How were you even able to come up with that as a premise or an idea?
So I was fortunate. I don't know. I guess I attract different kind of people. I don't know. But when I was a young sales rep, I had a cab driver named Max pull up one day to take me to the airport in a London taxi in the Philadelphia suburbs.
Yeah.
And Max was the first sales mentor I ever had. And he created just a great experience for people in that cab. So I chronicled our rides, thinking someday I'll tell people these stories. And then when I decided to start writing books after the cathartic moment, I pulled out all my old Max stories, and people love stories.
Absolutely.
These days is, can you tell a story, right? I know you're probably doing that in your business, Brian.
Sure. Yeah.
So we weave stories, not just about a cab driver, but all kinds of different leaders.
Yeah.
And people love hearing those stories. And most of the time, those stories get back to the way those people built relationships.
Right.
And we call them, building competitor-proof relationships. In your business, Brian, financial advisor, you're doing really well. You got your own business now. I knew you when you were coming up in that that's attracting clients to you versus other folks.
Yeah.
And if we can kind of capture that and it's probably has to do with your sincerity. You're incredibly sincere. You're curious. And there's something about the culture you're building that's making you all successful.
Right.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What's made you guys successful?
I was interviewing someone today, and they asked me that exact question. They said, what is the driving force behind growth? And it's funny that I'm having this conversation with you right now, because I said, it's our ability to develop relationships with not only centers of influence, but our clients deeply. And we think that does make a huge difference. You could talk about investments all you want, but when you have a real relationship with someone, I think that really does elevate your ability to connect with someone.
And again, we call that locating their relational GPS. You may or may not remember that concept, but you're finding a way to understand their business and personal goals, their causes or passions, things people care deeply about, and or their struggles. And almost anything that person shares with you can be categorized as a goal, passion, or struggle. And the more you can locate that and connect with them around that, the better chance you have to advance the relationship. We all know relationships carry the day when a buyer or decision maker, whether it be their own personal finances or decisions they're making for a company budget, the relationship generally carries the day.
Yeah.
So how do we build those relationships?
Yeah.
The cab driver's name was Max. He asked great questions, and they were aligned with the person in the cab. So he asked salespeople sales questions. He asked business leaders business leader questions. He asked grandparents grandparent questions. He asked kids about their toys.
Right.
He targeted his we call it a targeted conversation, and he targeted that conversation to the GPS of that rider. And if you looked at this fellow's business, he had a full pipeline. He had predictable forecast. His cash flow was guaranteed.
Yeah.
He got a ton of referrals. They're all things that we want when we're running a business.
Sure. Well, and if you think about it, you talk about, is there more of a commodity than a taxi cab, right? To be able to have such a full, to have a full slate of, and really elevate that type of business where you're just giving, this is, pre-Uber and Lyft days. That's pretty amazing to be able to do that. And to make that,
this guy was the original Uber.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The original, and he had a unique car too, right?
Oh, it was a London taxi. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
So he drove a London, like a black taxi around. And when we tell the Max stories, when we're doing our professional development programs, we talk about how he made every interaction matter.
Yeah.
And he said the secret to success was little things. He called them little extras. And if you think about, he left no stone unturned, from the cab to the cleanliness of the cab, to the conversation in the cab, to the timeliness. He created a competitor-proof experience in a commodity business. Well, guess what? Almost any business today can be commoditized by competition. What can't be commoditized are the relationships.
It's such a great point.
Yep, they make all the difference.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to something you just mentioned. So you said, just so I make sure I heard you correctly, you said 3 things that a relationship can be built when someone is sharing, would you say a goal, a passion, or a struggle?
Yep.
Can you go into that a little bit more in detail and how that really helps someone connect?
Sure. I was trying to form this business, and I'm like, I need something like a writer that writes fiction needs that opening line to the book. Like the night was something, right?
Right.
The night was this, the night was that, the night was sultry. It's something. So I'm trying to create tools so that it's not just stories about people and cab drivers.
Right.
And the tool that over about a year or so popped into my head was goals, challenges, and causes, right? And I'm like, and then somewhere along the line, somebody mentioned a GPS system, and I'm like, goals, passions, and struggles. It just was like this thing hit me. And almost anything that a client shares with you, Brian, you can write it down on a piece of paper. You can type it as you're talking with them. It's going to be a goal. It's going to be a passion, or it's going to be a struggle. It's really hard for them to share something. So let's say I ask you, I'm going to give you my $100 for free opening question to a potential client. Okay?
All right.
So let's pretend you're a business owner, and we're trying to talk to you about our services.
Okay.
First thing I might ask you is something like, and let's just do this. Okay. Yeah. So Brian, really amazingly challenging year for everybody.
Sure.
But if you look back on the last 12 to 18 months, what do you think is the number one accomplishment that you had in your business? Go
I
ahead.
would have, yeah, that's a good question. So I would say to go from being a business that was 99% of our interactions with clients was face-to-face to going to 99% virtually, essentially overnight, and not losing, the client experience wasn't lost during that. That's how I would answer that
And
question.
well, okay. And then, okay, so here's my second question.
Yep.
So why was that the most important thing with everything else you had going on? Why was that the most important thing?
Well, I guess it's due to the fact that that allows us to interact with our clients in the best way. And I guess in that helped us maintain our relationships with them.
Okay. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
Tell me how it helped you maintain your relationship. Like, because I'd rather meet you in person, but tell me more.
Yeah. So, we're basically not allowed to meet in person. And then the stock market drops, 30% in 22 days. And that's a very emotional part. That's a very emotional thing for a lot of people. And they want to have access to the person that's managing their money and watching out for their wealth. So to be able to do that and provide a similar experience to meeting face to face, they could see me, they could see what we were going through, I think was a real advantage during that period.
How did that work out for you?
Very well.
Right.
Yeah, it worked out very well.
So I just took you through what we call ask, tell.
Ah,
And I didn't tell, but so as business leaders, when we hear a challenge that we think we can solve, we
Yep.
typically go right to how we can solve it. And what I suggest to learn more about GPS
yeah.
is ask at least 3 questions after you've had the first question answered. So my first question to you was, what was your number 1 accomplishment? You said the conversion to virtual.
Yep.
Well, why was that so? Why? Can you tell me more about that? Now, you may not have to ask all these questions.
Right.
And then your 4th question, which I didn't ask, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Would you believe we work with seasoned sales teams all around the world, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't do that. I ask 1 question and I go right to what we can help them with.
Yeah.
So you can learn more and more GPS. You told me about your customer struggles.
Yeah.
They were passionate about wanting to be in contact with you.
Yep.
They were worried about their money, another struggle. It sounds like you navigated them through it. And typically you can get a business leader talking for 10 minutes with one question and those three asks. So that's how we suggest you locate GPS, that you don't jump to a conclusion too quickly. And, our other clients we do this for. So they don't want to think you're their other clients. They want to think they're your only client, even though they know you've got other clients.
Sure. That reminds me of that old saying that you hear when that's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, to be able to listen more is you really can connect on a much deeper level. That does make a lot of sense. So how were you able to create a systematized way to measure the value or the success or the depth of a relationship with someone?
I wish that was an easy answer, Brian. So again, when you are starting a business and you've got no income, innovation happens through desperation.
Right.
And and you talk to people who might be customers or who are in the business in the market you're trying to get into. So, everybody liked the stories and they like the theory.
Yeah.
GPS, and there's some other process tool or theoretical tools, but they say you got to have a process.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell to corporate America, they buy process.
Mm-hmm.
So we created a process called the relationship ladder.
Okay.
And it's 5 steps that take you from an acquaintance to a peer to an advisor with that other person. And we built an assessment around that based on customer behavior or prospective customer behavior. And we've now conducted 10,000 assessments. We've assessed 50,000 relationships.
Wow.
All around the world. And because the assessment was built not for salespeople, it was just built for business people.
Right.
So the fact that if you're with a customer and they extend the meeting past the time, you get points for that in the assessment.
Right.
If they don't respond to your correspondence, you get negative points for that. And there's weighting, and it was built by Villanova University. They're HR masters people. They're built that for us. So it's valid. But the fact of the matter is, we wanted to build a business where you can not only prioritize, but you can actually measure the strength of business relationships. And then what do you do about those? Yeah. So that's the process we use. We start with measurement, we do training and development, and then we remeasure at the end.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
No, that's a really interesting thing for me, because I once had a superior say to me, people like you, you just have to figure out how to make money from it. So, and how to make that a career. And, to be able to quantify that is a really powerful thing to do. How long did it take you to come up with that to make it, a valid process?
I think we launched that in like 2000, and probably took 6 months to a year of testing it. It was a paper assessment initially.
Okay.
And then we through the power of the World Wide Web, we put it online.
Yeah.
Right. And I love calling it the World Wide Web, because nobody calls it the World Wide Web anymore.
Of course. Yeah.
But it was the World Wide Web back then when we built it.
Yeah. www.
And, right. So now, right. Yeah. So now, now customers, they just literally, they get a code from us. They go out, they take the assessment. It gives them a nice report about what their relationship strength is, and individual ideas for the different people they assessed in there. Yeah. All behavioral, not psychological. So the average person can take the assessment and not be confused by it. It takes about 15 minutes.
Okay. And when you're working with these Fortune 500 companies, or you're working with these professionals, what's the most common mistake you see these people make in an attempt to build or strengthen a relationship?
Not the top 10%, but the other 90%.
Right.
Sound like everybody else when they're selling.
Yeah.
They sound like everybody else with the questions they ask. Their behavior is like everyone else's. So we're not after the top 10%. We're after the 90%.
Right. That's better for your business.
We don't want to mess with them. Like,
right,
we don't want to change anything.
Yeah.
Like, don't come to these trainings. Don't use the CRM. It'll mess you up.
Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
But the other 90, yeah. And one of the common things, if I had to take that to the next level, is, they ask stereotypical questions. Mm-hmm. They use stereotypical closes. They are not necessarily thinking about the relationship as much as they should.
Yeah.
They're selling, and there's one of my favorite old sayings that I think I invented was, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And how do we create experiences for customers where they're buying stuff? In your case, clients.
Sure.
And we're not selling.
Yeah.
The cab driver, Max, was not selling. We were buying a ton of his time.
Yeah.
Because we just couldn't get enough of that experience. So the most successful salespeople, I find, they don't even really understand their products. They really don't. Because that'll mess them up. Yeah. They understand. What they do understand is how what they're proposing to do will impact the business performance of that customer. Florida State just did a survey of buyers, and 85% of buyers expect that other person, the vendor, let's just say,
sure,
to understand their business and the impact of what they're providing will have on their business.
Yeah.
Take a guess how many salespeople actually can do that. Just pick a number, a percentage.
30?
14%.
Wow.
So the bar is really low to do what we call speaking the language of the customer.
Yeah. So in other words, they tell you all the cool stuff that they have, but not what the customer gets from it?
Well, we call those sources of value, the really cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
We call those sources of value. And here's an example. Well, our stuff is made in the USA.
Right.
Okay, now I'm
Okay.
a buyer and I'm worried about delivery times. I'm worried about sourcing. I'm worried. What I like to hear is, well, our products are made in the USA so that you can be assured of on-time delivery.
Right.
Oh, that's the language I want to hear.
Yep.
Made in the USA. Maybe I like German engineering.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Well, you're saying made in the USA, and I really don't like made in the USA. You know,
Yeah.
I want to buy stuff from Germany.
Yep.
So I think that's the thing. The sales professionals are not, most of them are not attuned at speaking in sometimes the very simple words, not the marketing terms that the marketing department gave us, but why does that help me?
Yes.
And it, you know, again, I always use made in the USA as an example because that might not mean anything to a purchasing person who's really not cared about where the heck it's made. But if it's made in the USA, there's probably a pretty good chance I'm going to get it sooner than if it's shipped from China.
Right. Yeah, I think that's
Right?
a really great point, because you know where you see that a lot is you see it on websites. It's all about, this is everything we do. We do this, we do this, we do this. And I always think, okay, well, what does that mean for me if I'm buying from you?
Right.
You know, what do I get? Not what do you give me? What do I get? And how does that help me? That's interesting.
So let's say you say, we're going to help you build financial security.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you, Brian, you just said to me, Ed, we're going to help you build financial security.
Yeah.
How would you translate that for me? Like financial, like, I don't like, what does financial security mean to me?
Right.
What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to definitely ask questions. Well, why that's important to them. Talk to them about the importance of money, why money makes them feel a certain way. And then say, okay, well, you are unsure whether you're going to be able to achieve your goals, and we're going to give you data to help you feel empowered to be able to make a decision that you're going to feel confident in. That's sort of how I would go down that road, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You're helping them make the best decisions they can.
Right.
I understand that.
Yeah. What I wouldn't do is talk about this cool investment product that I have,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Like, because everybody has cool investment products.
Right.
Everybody's got cool stuff.
Exactly.
And everybody can show a bar chart, you know, their investment growing. And if you put this much more in, it grows like this. Everybody can do that.
Yeah.
But what's the end game for that person? Oh, you know, I really want to retire to the Keys. Okay. Let's talk about what that's going to cost.
Yes.
And let's work backwards.
Yeah.
And hey, listen to me. I'm not a financial planner.
Right.
But I'm
Sure.
thinking about, okay, how would you connect with me about that? Geez, I didn't think about what that's going to cost.
Yeah.
I just thought I needed a boatload of money. No, let's actually take a scenario
Yeah.
where you buy a condo in Key West and let's work backwards.
You're right.
And see, and you want to leave some money to your kids, and you want this, and you want to fund the college thing for your grand. Like, let's look at all of those. I understand that.
Yes.
Right. I don't understand financial security.
Sure.
I understand that.
Yeah. Most people don't dream of an investment account size
Right.
as their retirement. They think about running around on Key West with their grandkids on, you know, over spring
Right.
break. You know, that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to go back to.
You're going to do that now, aren't you, Brian?
That's right. I'm going to take some notes, actually. One of the things I'm curious about is, you know, you talked about how Fortune 500 companies, you know, are super process oriented. They seem to be, for a lot of consultants and a lot of people in your space, sort of like the dream, the golden goose. Like, if you could get into a Fortune 500 company, you know, but it's very difficult to crack in. How do you think you were able to resonate with the people that were making decisions to be able to be so successful on that Fortune 500 company level?
You know, it's really interesting. So let me take the first Fortune 500, which is a customer now for 12 years, Dow Chemical.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
I got introduced from a friend of mine knew the director of marketing at Dow Chemical.
Okay.
He handed my book to him. That guy gave it to the guy who was heading up sales training.
Yeah.
And he said, you should call Paul up. So I emailed Paul. and I get a response pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And Paul was literally starting from scratch with his sales process. And I said, well, Paul, this call is really premature at this point. And, so I asked him a bunch of questions, what he was going to do. And then I said, why don't I touch base with you in 3 months? Let you get your feet under yourself there.
Yep.
And, we can talk more about that. He goes, well, hold on a minute. I said, okay, what? He goes, do you do keynote talks? I go, yeah. He goes, we got a sales meeting coming up. Maybe that's the way we can introduce you. I swear. And it's been multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars that's come from that initial interaction where Paul didn't feel like he was being sold.
Yeah.
He just felt like, hey, this guy has my best interests. He's thinking about my situation. He's putting himself in my shoes. Right. Next thing I know, the guy goes, I go, yeah, I do keynotes. He goes, well, let's talk about that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
So that's how that one worked. And then as Paul left and went to another role, I was introduced to other people. And I was really fortunate whenever these transitions happened, I built a good enough relationship where they were more than happy to make sure I was still insulated there.
Yeah.
And that's happened in more than one company.
Funny how that relationship was the important part.
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing that I wanted to ask you about is when you're getting your company set up, in the infant stages. I'm always fascinated by people that write books because that seems so insane to me that someone can write a book, right? So do you have the idea for the business and need the book, or does the book inspire the bit? Well, it's the chicken or the egg. Which one came first?
Well, I thought about what's going to make me different.
Okay.
There's a ton of sales trainers out there. I picked the platform Relational Capital.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked relationships. And then I thought, well, when I walk into a meeting, if I hand that person a book,
yeah,
there's probably a stronger impression that I'm credible than if I start referring to other people's white papers. And did you read the thing that McKinsey just wrote and and all that? Or
right.
So I don't want to be viewed as a consultant. I want to be viewed as a thought leader.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to start a service business in any area, publishing stuff is a really powerful way. And now you don't have to publish a full book.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, in my opinion, is the #1 business networking tool.
Absolutely.
And with more millennials who are hitting around early 40s now, you're one of them, right?
Yep. I'm technically Gen X.
You're really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Technically Gen X.
You're a cusper, though. You're right on the cusp, right?
I am a cusper. That's for sure.
More and more millennials are in decision-making capacities now.
Yeah.
And the first place millennials look at for people, from my experience and everything I research, is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So if you have an awful picture of yourself on LinkedIn, if you don't really present yourself well, and maybe they don't see, maybe you post a few things, and posting is simple. You don't have to write it, just share what somebody else posted and say something nice about it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And we're actually teaching a course now on this, Brian. It's social selling with LinkedIn.
Okay.
And again, it's not selling. Nobody's going to buy anything from you, but you're being vetted. So
right.
Put your best foot forward on LinkedIn, create a network on LinkedIn, contribute to the community of that network.
Yeah.
So that's something that, until 4 or 5 years ago, I was not involved really in it at all.
Really?
So I think that's an important element of it.
No, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love the
How's
idea.
Your LinkedIn profile, Brian.
It is strong. This podcast will be posted on LinkedIn. Yeah. I do love the idea that in order to be a thought leader in your industry, you should be using your own thoughts as opposed to borrowing someone else's. That seems simple, but that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, consultant or thought leader, there's nothing wrong with either one.
Sure.
It depends on whether you want to be an independent contractor,
Yeah.
or if you want to, kind of run a business or start a business.
Yeah.
And again, there's no judgment either way.
Right.
I know plenty of friends, and they do one client at a time, and they've built wonderful lives for themselves and their families. There are other friends who really wanted to, create IP. Like I licensed my IP to this company that I sold to.
Right.
So not only do I have an opportunity here to continue to grow, but they pay me a royalty every month on whatever we sell.
That's great.
So I've created a little retirement annuity.
Guaranteed income stream.
Guaranteed income stream. There you go, brother.
All right. So I wanted to circle back to one of the things you said earlier about keynotes, and how they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
How was your keynote business affected by the pandemic?
Well, sales teams were still getting together.
Yeah.
Just virtually. And keynote's just a small part of our business, sales training, workshops, training programs, engagements. That's really the lion's share of our business. But I remember I gave a virtual keynote with over 900 people on the,
wow.
the chat box. Yeah.
Wow.
It was great. It was great. And then I gave another one for the Strategic Account Management Association, and there was 400 people on there.
Wow.
So, and then there were some smaller ones, 100 people. I'll tell you, once you get used to this rectangle, the sky's the limit.
It's true.
It really is. I did one for this one person. She hires me all the time, and she sent me a comment, and I can't say it on here. And it says UFING kicked ASS.
That's awesome.
So I said, can I use you kicked? She said, yes.
Edit the other part out. That's awesome.
So, I just have gotten very comfortable talking this way. My in-person personality comes out.
Yeah.
And what's great is, especially if I have someone helping me, I can pull somebody in through a chat that I see. Oh, Rachel.
Yeah.
Rachel in San Antonio. You were, hey, Rachel. And next thing you know, Rachel comes on.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the other thing, the older I get, or should I say the more advanced in my career, I just feel like I'm helping people even more.
That's great.
My kids are grown up now. We're not quite empty nesters, but we're very independent as a couple now, as far as what we can do together. And
Sure.
Everybody's like, well, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I'm just getting good at this.
Right.
When I retire.
And why would you if you're
what else am I going to do? I mean,
Right.
I golf twice a month. That's plenty.
Yeah.
I don't want a boat. I sold my shore house. I just want to travel and meet people.
Yeah.
And this is what I worked all these years for. So,
That's awesome.
And do things like do what we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. I have two final questions for you. The first one's an easy
Two
one.
more.
As a former college baseball player, where is your son playing baseball and what position is he playing?
Well, he finished a great career. He's the third winningest pitcher ever at Newman University.
Wow.
He topped at 89 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
And believe it or not, he's still training over at a facility not too far from Delaware. You probably heard of Maple Zone.
Sure.
And he's still chasing the dream of getting picked up by an independent team. So he was working for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, his internship ended. So he's been working with us inside sales, and he's been just doing really well. He finished his master's, and now he's interviewing with the sports teams again. So
that's great.
That's where Grant is. My older son, Brett, he's working at the local movie theater, and he's happy. He's as happy as can be doing that.
That's great.
And my wife went back to nursing because she was bored because nobody was around.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yep.
And then the last question I want to ask you is, so you sell your business that you've created yourself. How was that process? Did you have any sadness of giving, of not driving the ship anymore? How was that process for you?
Brian, the deal that I struck, how could I be sad?
Okay, perfect. Say no more.
That's all I can say.
Say no more.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this was great. Ed, I really appreciate your time today. I couldn't have enjoyed our conversation more. It was great.
Right back at you, Brian. I'm so happy to see how well you're doing.
Thank you.
Hearing
You
that
too.
your family's doing great. And if I can help you in any way, I'm always there for you, brother.
That's great. For our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about his business or to buy his books, go to AchieveNEXT.com or anywhere that books are sold. I think they still sell books on Amazon, right?
They do. Yeah.
And if you want to connect with me on the Untapped app, my username is brcarney7. To learn more about how my firm helps business owners with their financial planning, visit riversedgeadvisors.com. And to hear past episodes of the podcast, go to happy-half-hour.com. And for the Pills Mafia, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. So I enjoyed it. I would definitely drink it again. And good luck to all those Bills fans out there. Ed, thank you so much. It was great to be with you. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, sponsored by Rivers Edge Advisors. For more information on how Rivers Edge Advisors can help you, visit their website at riversedgeadvisors.com. If you'd like to connect with Brian Carney for business advice or just to share a beer, follow him on Instagram at riversedgeadvisors_LLC.